This is Dale Jr., and you're listening to Dirty Mo Radio.
There's a picture of the three of you, and you're all in your suits standing in front of a car, and I'll never forget this, coming across that picture in a magazine, and I'm like, Dad, this is who I want to be. This is me. And my dad's like, you don't understand, Ashley. Like, she's a better racer than her brothers are.
That's awesome. Somebody wanted to be me.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to be Danica. Welcome to Kelley Earnhardt Miller's Fast Lane Family, presented by Wella Professionals. Salon care products that you can experience with your senses. Get high performance you can see, touch, and sense. All right, welcome to this week's Fast Lane Family. Hope everybody had a great St. Patrick's Day yesterday. This week, I have Ashley Stremme in studio, wife of David Stremme. And stay tuned for our tip of the week. We're going to tell you how to get out girls' tangles. So moms and dads, stay tuned. But first up, hello, Ashley. How are you today?
I am great. How are you?
She is super good. She's sweating. I'm cold.
Monday.
It's Monday.
75 degrees out.
She's stressed. She's busy.
Always.
We're going to learn what's stressing and busying her out.
Lordy.
Right?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's first start.
Well, I've got to say, I watched I Am Dale.
Yes,
that was
that
awesome.
Cool? Yeah,
really
I saw
cool.
David tweet about that.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really good. I just thought it was very well done.
It was. It was.
Just from all angles.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It was really cool to see the very beginnings.
Yeah. Did you grow up an Earnhardt fan?
I did, believe it or not. I still have the T-shirt. It was, of course, it was black.
Those black T-shirts that you just had to
and
wear.
I'll never forget it. It said 6 time in individual letters, and there was a picture in each letter across the back. Yes, absolutely, of course. But it was kind of cool to see that. I didn't really know the front story of everything for y'all.
Right.
But it was really cool because we kind of grew up the same way, struggling, trying to make a living, and my dad was racing on the weekends just to try to.
So let's talk about that. You grew up in Pennsylvania?
Yes, ma'am.
And your dad raced sprint cars. Now, did he try to do that full time, or did
no,
he have a day job too?
Yeah, he did have a day job. Back when, Lordy, he was racing mini sprints back then when I was real young. And he worked as a mechanic during the day. Took him an hour to get to work and an hour to get to home. And my mama was working an hour away as well because we grew up in a very, very small town. And it was tough.
Where did you grow up in Pennsylvania?
Mifflintown, Pennsylvania.
Mifflintown.
It was about 3 miles from Port Royal Speedway.
Okay. All right.
A little dirt track that we would race at locally once we got to 410 sprint cars. But growing up, it was really tough. We didn't have a whole lot. And the only way we were able to go racing is my dad was good enough that people would give him product, and we didn't really have to buy a whole lot of stuff. It was given to us, and then we would just hope like crazy that we were able to win that weekend and take home a few extra $100. And it was tough. I remember huddling around a kerosene heater when I was a kid in the wintertime, and we'd be in 9 million layers, and you'd run upstairs and you'd shimmy all those layers off and build a little fort around yourself in the bed so you could stay warm till morning.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so that was really cool to see that it was kind of the same beginning. And then my dad came home one day and he said to my mom, "You're going to be a stay-at-home mom, and we're going to figure this out. I'm going to start my own business." And he became an excavator, and Lordy, things took off quick, and we're truly blessed.
Did he still race?
Yeah, he then joined the 410 sprint car ranks, which is huge in Central PA, Posse land.
We want to get up to Port Royal. We visit Pennsylvania a lot because that's where LW's from.
Yeah.
We actually looked last year when we were there we go in the summer for like 2 weeks at a time, and we looked all around at the sprint car races because Carson wanted to go, and I think they had just ran the weekend prior. Okay. So we didn't look up in
Make
time.
sure you get to Williams Grove and Port Royal. Those are the two Friday and Saturday nights. Those are the two you definitely need to hit.
So your dad was an excavator. Did he build himself a nice big business?
He did. Yeah. It was funny because we were, like I said, we were really poor, and I'll never forget, we went and looked at this house, and I was like, man, we can't afford this. I was about 6 years old at the time. And I was like, no way. It was a model show home, so they had built it, and they had to tear it down.
All pretty.
It was. It had the silverware on the table. Like, I'll never forget it. And I went to school the next day, and we came home, and my mom's like, I need you to start boxing your stuff up. We're moving. And I said, what? And she's like, we bought the house we went and looked at yesterday. And I'll never forget, I went to school the next day, and I'm like, oh, my God, we're rich. We bought this house. It had the curtains on. There's bedroom furniture. Like, my parents slept on a mattress. They didn't even have a bed because we were so poor. But it comes to find out that they were selling it so cheap because it wasn't hooked up to water or sewer. But my dad was able to do that because of the excavation business. So we stole the house. It was so cheap. But those were the days. You know, we didn't really have a whole lot, but we had more love than anything in that house.
That's always important.
It's totally made me who I am today.
My kids, you know, we live out by Dale, and we have a 3,000 square foot home. It's not huge by any means. We have a pool and we have a garage with all our, you know, all the kids' toys and everything. And Kennedy will ride by Dale's house going out the driveway, and she'll go, "Mama, how come we're not rich like Uncle Junior?"
I love it. Perspective is so different.
I know.
When you're that age.
I'm like, well, first off, let me tell you something. I would not want that much house to clean.
Absolutely.
Okay. Like, let's talk about all the things that are
goes
good
along with
about
it.
the size house we have.
Absolutely.
So did you ever try your hand at racing?
I did. I started racing go-karts when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
All right, now, do you have brothers and sisters?
I don't. I'm the only
You're
child.
only child.
Well,
Okay.
I did have a sister. She passed away. She was she had some medical issues when she was born, and then she ended up passing away when she was 6, and I was 3 at the time.
Wow.
So that was another stress on my family.
Goodness.
Of course, at when we were struggling, because she had to be in care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that was another stress on my family.
Primarily as an only child.
Yes. So I started racing go-karts when I was 6 years old. We laughed because my dad put me in the slowest cart possible. I think he even regulated the governor on it just so I wasn't doing anything. And I was about to get lapped in my very first race, so I spun out. And I remember pulling into the pits and my dad screaming at me, "What are you doing spinning out?" And I was like, "'Cause I didn't want to get lapped, Daddy." And he's like, "Oh my God, my daughter's a genius."
She's got this figured out already. I'm not tricking her.
That's right, yeah. So I raced go-karts for a little bit, and then I quit doing that. And then when I was 15, I got into a full-body enduro, pro stock, whatever you want to call them. I know they're called something different everywhere else.
Track,
yeah.
Right.
And I started racing those when I was 15 at Port Royal. And again, my dad made me start at the rear just because it was my first race in a big car with other racers, and it had been a while since I had raced.
He obviously didn't think you were going to be very good at this.
He didn't. No. Well, that
or we can say he was trying to protect you.
Absolutely.
Let's just look at it that way.
We'll go with
You're
that.
his girl, and he's trying to protect you.
Yeah. So I finished second in that race.
Cool.
And then they found out I was 15. Thankfully, I'd already collected my money at payoff. So then I had to wait another year to race.
I read a story about that, actually, about David, too. So same thing happened to him.
Yes.
He was in his mother's street stock car,
Yeah.
and they found out he was 15. And that's so hard to fathom now because these kids are
The
racing
ages
at
are 12. Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
12 and 14 over at Hickory and places like that, in the street stocks and the late models. And
Yeah. I remember,
we were getting kicked out at 15.
Well, that was the thing. Like, when we were a kid, my parents couldn't afford a babysitter, so I would go to the racetrack with them. And my mom didn't want to sit in the grandstands, so we would go to the pits, and I would hide under a blanket in the back of the pickup truck, A, so they wouldn't know I was there, B, so they wouldn't have to pay for me. And I remember Mom's like, "You're either on top of the trailer or you're in the trailer. There's no other questions asked. Like, or you're never coming again." Yeah.
Oh, gosh. The things we did.
Yeah.
So why did you not continue to pursue racing, or what? How did that? What happened?
I kept
Did you go to
racing
college,
until I
or-
was about, I want to say it was, Lordy, 2007, I guess, was the last time that I had raced back home in Pennsylvania. My dad really wanted to get me behind the wheel of a sprint car. I'll never forget him kind of begging, and I knew at that point in my life it wasn't something that I was like ready to jump on board with. And I knew also that if I ultimately started racing, that he would probably have to step aside. And I knew he wasn't at that part in his life, you know, and I didn't expect him to do that for me. But he does tell me on a regular basis that that was probably the worst decision that I ever made, and that he wished I would have stuck with racing because he truly believed that I probably could have done something with it. But that's just the cards that I chose not to play.
I have those what ifs too, you know, same thing.
Well, that was the thing. It's funny because when Amanda contacted me about doing the show, it was like total fangirl moment. Because I remember, you're going to laugh, there's a picture of the three of you, Carrie, you, and Dale, and you're all in your suits standing in front of a car. And I'll never forget this. I was about maybe 10 when that picture was taken, and I'll never forget coming across that picture in a magazine, and I'm like, "Dad, this is who I want to be. This is me." And my dad's like, "You don't understand, Ashley. Like, she's a better racer than her brothers are." Like, I'll never forget that story. So I had to share that. And then I saw that picture. We toured a museum at one of the tracks when we had some free time, and I remember seeing that picture.
Too funny.
It's one of my favorite pictures of my childhood from racing industry.
That's awesome. Somebody wanted to be me.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to be Danica.
Yeah.
Yay. You went to school, right?
Yes.
You went to college?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For graphic design and animation?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's crazy. My dad wanted me to be a dentist, and that's ultimately what I had gone for. And in the first few classes, I realized real quick that saliva was not cool unless it was my own.
I often wonder.
You know,
I say the same thing about doctors. I'm like,
I just figured that everybody was like my teeth, and that's not the case. And I was like, I don't know if I can put my hands in other people's mouths, so we're just going to stop this right now. And I was trying to find my way. I went as an English major for a little bit, and I'm like, what am I doing? And then I came across graphic design, and I loved animated movies, and it's just something that my dad thought he failed me because I didn't do what I should have went to college for, but it's what I ultimately loved, and he thought it was foolish. And
did you do anything with that?
I did. I worked at our local paper back home, designing ads.
Oh, cool.
For the newspaper. And of course I do it now, here and there. I try not to dabble with it as much anymore. But David's Cup hero cards, I helped with some of those, and, logos that we do and things like that.
The whole animation thing is very interesting to me, just to see how that works. And
well, I need to borrow your kids sometimes so people don't just think I'm weird going to these movies, because I love it. Like, I drag David to the animated movies, and thank God he loves them too. But it's so funny.
Just couple in there, no kids.
Yeah,
this couple here.
It's hilarious. Like, we get so many looks. Like, we're walking up through, and everybody's like, "Where are your kids?"
Hey,
and I'm like, "I'm right here."
Oh gosh,
I may be funny. 30, but I still act like I'm 12 sometimes.
So, what's your favorite Pixar movie?
Definitely Cars.
Yeah, Cars.
Absolutely. Okay. David actually proposed to me after Rapunzel.
Tell us that story.
It really isn't a great story, but it came out on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And he's like, let's go see this movie. And I'm like, all right. And it's a Disney movie, so it's a little bit more sing-songy, which he doesn't like, and he learned that after that movie. But in the movie, I don't even remember his name, was dying, and she was holding him, crying, and he made the comment that she was his everything, and she was his dream, and then that's how he proposed to me.
Did he propose to you in the movie?
No. It was after we got home,
Okay.
No, he's not quite that.
Not that quite romantic.
No. I was impressed that he, was able to tie that together.
So where did you meet David?
At a dirt track in Talladega, Alabama.
Cool.
Several years ago. Yeah, it was probably 8 years ago now. We've been together 5 years. Yeah.
Time flies, right? Yeah.
Craziness. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Insane. But yeah, it was at a dirt track, of course.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
You're both loving racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like the perfect place to meet, because to marry a racer, you got to be a racer.
Absolutely.
You got to understand it, know it.
Yeah, the passion has to be there.
Yeah.
There are days now that I'm like, can we just go somewhere else other than a racetrack? I still love it, but I think there's a little bit more to life that we need to.
Well, too, and I wanted to get into that. So you met David in 2000. Let's see, we're at 7, 6, 7.
I think it was 7. Yeah. 6 or
somewhere around in there. When did you start dating?
Yes, we started dating 2009.
Okay.
We both were in a relationship at the time when we met. Honestly, the stars aligned.
Yeah.
I could go into that story, but it's very long. But literally, somebody was looking out for us up above and said that you two need to be together. Not right now, but eventually. Yeah. 3 years later, I'm sitting getting my hair done. It was October 13th. It was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But
She got a good memory.
I really don't. It was just that day. I don't know. But anyhow, I get this text message, and he's like, hey, this is David Stremme. I don't know if you remember me. And I'm like, yeah. Okay, hey. It took him 5 days to finally call me. And then 2 months later, I'm moving to North Carolina, and he's coming up and asking my parents if I could move to North Carolina, and that was a huge step.
You still lived in Pennsylvania then?
Yes, yeah, and my dad is an avid gun owner, so that really intimidated David.
Too funny.
We're avid hunters, so my dad has a nice display of guns sitting in his office, so that really
freaks
David
David too?
out. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, we were a bunch of rednecks.
No, nothing wrong with that.
Hunting and fishing and racing.
Yeah, I'm sitting here loving this because, I'm not the only one that's going to sound like I have a crazy accent in this one, Amanda. Usually, I talk to all these people that they're so nice and pleasant.
Well, and
talking.
The more I'm around that
an accent.
Strong, I start to pick it up.
I do too. I know.
But it's funny because everybody down here says, where are you from?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Pennsylvania. And everybody back home's like, man, you've been in the South a long time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't belong anywhere. Like, this is terrible.
You don't sound like Pennsylvania accent for sure.
Well, and then Pennsylvania has 3 different accents. Like, you've got the Eastern, the Western, and the Central. Because I played football in Eastern, and I went to school in Western, and I grew up in Central, and so I think that has a lot to do with it, too. I don't know. I don't know where I'm from based on my accent.
Oh, gosh. So you met David you started dating in 2009. Mm-hmm. So David had come off of, his stint in the Cup Series at that point. Yeah, he was
just getting released from Penske at that point.
Yeah. And gosh, that had to be a lot to take on, right?
It was. That honestly, the year we got engaged and the year we got married was probably the hardest time in our relationship.
Yeah.
Penske was 2009. He was just getting done there. 2011 is the year that that was the year we got married. Lordy. 2010, he proposed. 2011, we got engaged. The beginning of 2011 is when we started our Cup team, Inception Motorsports. Right. And I was the only one in the office. I had been involved with NASCAR through David with what he had been doing, but I had never been on the office side of things. And we hired a girl 2 days a week to do all the accounting stuff because we had investors at the time, and I didn't want to be the one that was like, where'd this go? Where'd this dollar? Where's this? And I'm like, no. I'll do everything else but that. So she came in 2 days a week, and I was in the office by myself managing 7 guys. It was crazy.
Felt like you were thrown to the wolves, I'm sure.
I really did, yeah, because I felt so stupid when I'd call somebody up at NASCAR because A, I didn't know what I was talking about. C, I didn't know what was going on anyhow, and so I'd be like, hey, this is Ashley from Inception Motorsports, and they're like, yeah? And I'm like,
what can we do for you and the other 42 people that we have on the line today?
Right. And I'm like, drug test, licensing, I don't know who I need to talk to, and they're like, here, and here. I'm like, thanks. Can you transfer me? No, call him. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Great.
Yeah, so it was an interesting nightmare. The hardest thing we had to learn was that we had to leave that at the shop when we went home.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult. So we didn't have a honeymoon stage. We went straight to the hating each other. I want to kill you, literally at some points, just screaming matches. And we would sleep in separate beds on many occasions because of it. And now I think I look back and, it wasn't great then, but that was, I think, the lowest of our lows. So from here on out, it should only be going upward.
You've already passed the old 7-year itch and all those fun things. You got those out of the way very early. You had the 7-day itch.
That's like, we had talked about it the other day, and I was like, man, if there was a time that I was going to leave you, that probably would have been it because it was crazy. But I learned a lot.
Yeah,
I
would say.
So if anybody needs travel coordinators or drug testing help, call me.
You got it. So he had the team for about 2 years.
Yep.
And then sold to Swan and was supposed to be the driver for the whole year of 2013.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work
forward,
out.
actually.
And forward,
yeah.
and that didn't work out.
Well, honestly, it was tough.
I can't imagine supporting. I mean, I went through my own thing with OW just from him. He stopped racing in 212 after Wyatt was born, just, modifieds. But he had raced modifieds all of his life and, before that in the Busch Series and the ARCA Series and all this, and just that support and trying to support that piece of him. I can't imagine being in your position at the Cup level with David had put his heart and soul. You guys have put your heart and soul in that
Absolutely.
for 2 years.
It was very tough when somebody comes in and they think that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we thought we knew what we were doing 2 years ago. And thankfully, David has a lot of connections and a lot of knowledge about this sport and industry and had a lot of people backing him. And then you have somebody who comes in and has no idea what they're even remotely doing and think that they can just take it and run with it. And that's great ambition. I love that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you see where it got them.
Right.
And I just think he was in over his head, unfortunately. Yeah. And we didn't truly want to be a part of it. That's where things got hairy, and the media saw it as, he got booted. And David pretty much told him up front, I don't want to be a part of this if this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because David wouldn't attach his name to something like that because that's just not who he is and how that man was doing business at the time. David's like, this isn't how I operate, and I don't want to I don't want to
get out of
tarnish
this.
my name because of you. Yeah.
And so at that point, you guys have been focusing on dirt cars. Back to your roots.
Yeah.
Starting your own business, kicking some butt, I see.
Lordy, girl.
I bet he can't build those chassis fast enough right
I
now.
don't know if it's luck, if it's a fluke. I have no idea, but I tell you what, the good Lord above has truly blessed us. I didn't realize how intelligent David was. Like, I knew that he had accomplished what he's accomplished in his lifetime because he's a smart guy when it comes to that, but I didn't see him as a designer of a race car, and he did it all. I mean, it was unreal. He looked at several other race cars just to see if what the numbers that he was running and the things that he was thinking would work. Mm-hmm. But for him to actually put it down on paper, and it just blows me away till this very day. I still don't understand how it worked, but he really put a note in my notebook. Yeah. Because I was like, wow. Like, I was really blown away by it. I was like, wow, I know you're really smart about race cars.
It's got to be more rewarding, too, at the end of the day, right?
It's still not easy.
Yeah. No, nothing is easy.
It's a new business. You know as well as I do in the first 5 years of a new business. And, even if it looks like it's flourishing, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
The bills are always outweighing what's coming in. But it's really cool to see that anything that he puts his mind to, he can accomplish it, and nobody's going to stand in his way. And to me, that's more rewarding than anything because he's built this from the ground up. It's his baby. We've had nobody else involved. We don't have to answer to anybody else. He just does what he wants. And I say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And sometimes he listens and sometimes he doesn't. And that's also a good thing too, because when he does listen, he needs to. And when he doesn't, I end up getting showed that I was wrong,
right?
And vice versa. But it's really been a crazy fluke. But I don't know.
He racing pretty much every weekend?
No,
or he's building cars.
Yeah, we're building cars right now. He wants to still race at least once a month. But he ultimately knows that you can't race every weekend and build a business and build race cars. Yep. That's one thing I think in the chassis building world is you constantly have to be coming up with something new, because otherwise you'll be surpassed by somebody else. So I think that for him more than anything is just, I got to race every now and again so I can continue to learn something and just make sure the rest of my cars run good. I think more than anything, it's like they're our children. I mean, some of the guys that own our cars are older than I am, and I'm like, I still feel like a mother figure to them because I'm like, for us to be successful, they have to be successful. And, it's all based on customer service and just making sure that they feel like they're a part of something bigger. Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people lose in business is the fact that personal touch, especially in the dirt world. When you get with a bigger manufacturer, you just become a number. Yeah. And we don't want that. We want to have that personal relationship with you. We want to know when your birthday is. Just that little corny stuff. But it means a lot to us because your success entitles our success and what happens with it.
So you had a backlog of working on cars, filling orders right now?
Yeah. Right now, I was just listening, but not listening the other day. I think we're into the end of May now.
Wow.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and that's the thing. We don't want to get too big too quick. Yeah. And David's put a number. He's thinking 20 to 25 a year because we don't want to be huge. Yeah. So yeah,
cool.
it's been
That's
crazy.
Exciting.
It's weird. Like Volusia was a perfect example for us. We went last year with another car that we were racing at the time from another manufacturer before we started our business, and we looked like we didn't even belong there. And to David's credit, he only has like 50 races on dirt ever in his entire life. And I was like, we need to load up and go home. This is terrible. We look like fools. I don't like this. It was awful. And then to come back this year in our very own car, the very first night we're there, and to win and sell our race car on the spot. Like,
I can believe
that.
That
hasn't happened since, that's what Kenny Wallace, we were talking to him, and he's like, that hasn't happened since the 80s? Like, it was crazy.
I was so happy when I seen that on Facebook. That was just awesome.
It's very humbling.
That's how Ashley and I stay connected through Facebook.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what people say. I don't ever talk to you. I'm like, if you need me on my Facebook.
I know. Yeah, that was great. I was so happy to see that.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. So you and David just started a new podcast on MRN called Slinging Dirt.
We did.
You said when we sat down before we started recording, I'm not sure how I got thrown into this. So
Lordy.
how did this come about?
Lordy, neither of us know nothing about radio. Thank God he's done it enough that, he can talk to a brick wall if you
If he
let
needs
him.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Chatty Cathy. So I'm very blessed to have him as my co-host. But MRN also has a show called Wing Nation.
Yep.
And it's all sprint car stuff. Kendra Jacobs and Steve Post are the hosts of that. And when Kendra can't be there, I ultimately fill in for her.
Cool.
Just because I have a little bit of that
background
from growing up.
You know a little bit.
A little bit. So I did that maybe 12 or 13 times in the last 2 or 3 years. And I was in there about a month ago filling in for Kendra. And the producer comes in and we're kind of just chatting it up, just talking about life in general. And he looks at me, he's like, I got it. And I'm like, you got what, bud? What are you talking about? And he's like, you and David, we're going to do a show. And I'm like, huh? What? Have you lost your mind? He's like, I'm telling you, he's like, we get so much grief about only talking about winged sprint cars that everybody else in the dirt racing world is asking what about us? And he's like, I think you and David would be perfect. And I'm like, do you realize that I don't know nothing about radio? And he's like, well, you do a pretty good job when you're here. I said, I just fake it till I make it. But so we started a radio show, and it's every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on MRN.com. And it's crazy. And last week was our first show. And
what do you guys talk about?
We talk about late models and modifieds.
And so just
much.
What's going on that week, races from the races past, what's coming up, that
pretty
kind of
much,
thing.
which is kind of hard right now because they're not racing at all. But with the weather and the World of Outlaw schedule doesn't actually start for another 2 weeks. So that's been kind of weird too. So we're just pulling people right now. But we have 3 guests every week on our show.
Oh, cool.
And we just chat with them about racing. It's kind of crazy. And I'm supposed to be the leader, and I'm like, Craig, I don't know nothing about radio. He's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Figure it out. You'll figure it out.
So after the first show, he was like, that was awesome. And I was like, listen, don't make me feel good, to be honest. And he's like, listen, I would tell you if that was terrible. He's like, most people come in here on their first show. It's very awkward. And that was my main concern, is making sure that
I don't think you have any problem with that.
Well, it is when you're the one that's running it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it's different. Like, you're the one that has to talk about the filler.
Keep it up.
Yeah,
Right. You gotta
absolutely.
keep it up. Yeah.
And there's a lot of work to it.
Yeah.
Just with Wing Nation, I'd have to sit down and do my homework, and
Yeah.
it's a lot more work.
It's true. I felt this. Well, I have the same thing with this podcast.
Right.
The same thing when I would fill in for Angie Skinner.
Okay.
With Dave Moody's show.
Lordy, I don't know how you did that.
Well, Dave usually, here was how it worked for the longest time. Dave, he's all up and up on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the most talking I would do are the callers that call in and ask about my
Yes.
family. They just want to talk about my family.
And probably to your advantage, they were excited
No,
to talk to
it
you
was.
about,
And so it made it easy.
Absolutely. But when they get those callers that are hateful,
I know. I don't know how he does it
I'd
sometimes.
be like, oh, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
Cut him off, quick, hurry.
And I'd always have to think, okay, now I've got to do this on Tuesday or whatever day it was. Now I have to catch up on like the last few days news, you know, so I was in the know, because I really don't. If it's not on my Twitter feed or my Facebook feed,
Amen.
I'm not
you don't
seeing
know about
it, you know.
And even then, you'll still scroll past the stuff that you aren't really excited to learn about.
So I'm like, I got to catch up on this stuff. So it does take a lot of research. I've talked with Wendy Vittorini and Kenny Wallace and all them about that same thing, Larry McReynolds, and just what it takes to do TV. Can you imagine doing TV?
Absolutely
Can you imagine calling a race?
I'd be like, what number's out?
Yeah, I mean, and I was talking to Wendy how you hand off, from like corner to corner with the different announcers and stuff. I mean, that takes a lot of skill.
Segues and all that.
Yeah.
Ugh,
yeah. I'd be
it's a lot of work,
falling and fumbling over
and let
myself.
alone have to somebody actually see me doing that while I'm standing there acting all proper, holding a mic. At least with radio, I can like act crazy. And do weird stuff.
So I have a question about this football playing that you mentioned earlier. So you said I played football over in the East, right?
I did, yes.
Did you say East?
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about the football that you played.
Lordy.
That's pretty cool.
It was cool. I remember throwing football in the front yard with my dad when I was a kid, and I loved football. I truly did. I would sit down and be glued to the television screen when the Dallas Cowboys would come on, You
liked the Dallas Cowboys
when I was a
you
kid.
Lived in Pennsylvania?
I did, yeah. As a kid, I was a huge Troy Aikman fan, Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders, all those guys. I love the Dallas Cowboys. And I wanted to play football so bad, but back in those days and at the age that I was at, everybody's like, a girl on a football team?
Do they let girls play football now? I haven't heard any. They do? Okay, that's not showing up on my Twitter feed. So
I love it. Yeah, there's actually a couple of girls that are kickers now for a lot of college teams and different stuff like that. Okay. But yeah, I always wanted to play football. And this opportunity came up. It's probably not the prettiest way to play football, but this opportunity came up, and it was to play for the Philadelphia Passion, which I think they've changed the name of the league now. I believe it's the Legend Football League, but back when I played, it was the Lingerie Football League. Again, not one of my proudest moments playing football, but I wanted to play football, and I was going to get paid to play football, and at that point, I was like, I don't care what it takes, I'll do it. And so we were running around in little boy shorts and bathing suit tops with shoulder pads and knee pads and elbow pads and a helmet on, playing full tackle football. So that was really cool. I only did it for a year.
I think it's pretty courageous, to be honest.
Thanks.
I do. I mean, if that's your passion and you want to do it, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to be a girl and play football.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that all the girls out there, they had different reasons for doing it, you know?
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
But if your passion is to be a football player and you're a girl and you can't do it any other way, I mean.
It was the only way that I was ever going to be able to play football. And now I am a Steelers fan, going to school in Western Pennsylvania. But it was the only way that I was going to be able to play football, and I wanted to fulfill a dream, and so I did. And
what was your position that you
I
played?
was middle linebacker and offensive line.
This little thing was a linebacker?
I was.
Lord, I'd hate to see the other girls, you know, on the league, like from their size-wise, if you were the linebacker.
When there was 180 of us that tried out, and they only picked 18, and it was based on your physical ability.
See, a lot of girls
and
wanted
your
to play
look.
football.
Absolutely, yeah.
And 180 just for that team.
Just for that team.
How many?
There was 10 teams across the country.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was cool. I mean, it was a selection process, but it was based on your looks and how athletic you were. I mean, you had to be the total package. They just weren't going to sign you up because you were a big girl that could play football. But it was cool.
Cool.
David actually got to come watch me play. That's when we first started dating.
I remember that. I can see your picture now and your little black things under your eyes, and I'm like, oh, this is who David's dating now.
I bet you were like, well, this girl. Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, I have a relationship with David from when he drove for Ganassi,
right?
And
Absolutely.
And an association there, and I knew David and had been around him a lot, you know, and so I was really excited when, you know, he had a steady girlfriend, and I'm like, hey, this girl plays football.
She's in her underwear.
Those were boy shorts.
Yeah, they were. Yep.
They make bathing suits like that.
That's right.
You know,
they make bathing suits that are smaller than
well,
that.
yeah, that's the whole thing.
Where
like,
it was a little, my parents at first were kind of like, huh? And I'm like, I'll tape everything up. Don't worry. Like, you won't see nothing.
I know. LW gets, you know, he gets aggravated about Carson's shorts because, you know, they'll be
keep getting
shorter. And I'm like, she wears a bathing suit around boys. She wears a bathing suit around people. Like, really, you know, I mean.
Yeah. And she's a tall, skinny thing anyhow.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
I can almost see her butt in that. And I'm like, well, you know.
In her defense, I know what it's like to be tall and skinny and trying to find clothes at that age that fit. And it was very, very hard to do back then. So
it is.
In her
she always has the problem where everything's too big in the waist, but she needs the length.
Too short in the
waist. She needs the length and it's too big in the waist, and she doesn't like to cinch them all up where they're all, you know, cinched up
cool,
around
Mom.
the waist. No.
It's not cool.
No, not cool at all.
So if she ever wants to play lingerie football.
Well, we might not go that far. She doesn't have a passion for football, so we're not going there, okay? Because we would be in there for all the wrong reasons.
Right. Well, you just keep her in that fire suit.
Yep. She is interested in acting in pageantry, which you have done.
Call me. And Rochelle.
Yep. And Rochelle, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I wonder where she got the idea. Rochelle's her aunt, for you listeners that don't know. And her aunt, Rochelle, finished third in the Miss North Carolina pageant back in,
October.
I don't remember the year. Oh, I'm talking about way back when. The Miss North Carolina pageant, And so they've been talking about that and
cool.
And interested in pageantry. But
that's awesome.
Mama's not on board with that yet.
Why?
I don't know. It just takes so much time and money. She's like, okay, Mom, I want to enter this pageant, and it's $700, and that buys my crown and my sash and my title. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Don't do
why
those.
Are we buying?
Yeah, no.
I'm like, why are we buying titles? If you want a crown, honey, we'll go down to the store.
Absolutely. There was a thing back home that if you sold the most tickets, you got the crown and the sash. And my dad's like, no.
Yeah.
But in her defense, again.
No, but I'm all about like which I don't know a lot about pageantry, but I'm thinking, if you're going to go out for the county pageant and then work your way up to state level and
Sure,
work your way
absolutely.
up to, Miss America or whatnot, that if you have another passion that supports that, where you can garner that attention to help whatever your other cause is, if you want to be an actress or if you have a charity platform that you want to go for, or whatever that is, then I see it making sense,
I mean, I was
not
never a
going out and
girly
buying a
girl.
crown.
Absolutely. I was never a girly girl growing up. I always worked on my dad's race cars, and I'll never forget the day he sat me down and he's like, you need to start dressing like a girl, you need to act like a girl, and you need to be a girl. And I'm like, no, I can't play with the girls at recess. This is terrible. But my mom put me in gymnastics and ballet, and it was probably the best thing I ever did. My coordination from that, I'm so thankful for now. And like you said, with pageantry, I know people kind of in the North especially frown upon it. In the South, it's a little bit more glorified and they pat you on the back for it. But it's really a builder. I have a trouble with interviews and stuff like that. So for me, the world of pageantry put me outside my box. And I think the only way you can grow as an individual is to be uncomfortable. And I loved the stage because I had danced for 13 years. So the stage wasn't my issue. It was the interview and talking about myself and talking about the charities that I represented at the time and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with them. And that was really hard for me because growing up, Dad always taught us to be humble. It was more, you didn't blow, you didn't toot your own horn.
You didn't toot your horn, right, exactly.
No, if somebody else was talking about you, you had done something. Yeah. If you had to talk about you, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Exactly.
So
you're right.
That was very hard for me. So in the pageant world, I did it to put myself out there and to be vulnerable because I think that's the only way you can grow as an individual. So. And you get to wear pretty clothes and dress up, and people do your hair and makeup.
She's all about that, too. She's already went and tried on dresses. Like, Mom, isn't this dress so beautiful?
So pretty.
Yeah, I want to wear this dress. Like, let's back up.
And those dresses have so many dollar signs. Trust me,
yes,
I know.
They do.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
They do. All right, well, I have covered my notes, so we did
Lordy,
great.
That was quick.
We didn't even mention the name of your chassis business is Lethal Chassis. We failed to call that out in case there's some dirt racers out there looking for a good product.
Look us up.
You can't get anything till summer, but
May, call now. We'll get you in.
Get on the list.
We'll figure something out.
What's next up for what's your everyday, what's a day in your life week wise? You said when you came here you're like we were upstairs in the offices. So
no, I'm really involved with what we do. It's just David and I, and then we have two guys that work for us. So we're literally a 4-man band. When we go to the racetrack, it's one guy that works for us and David and myself. We're just doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't.
So you do the kind of
bookkeeping.
Office work,
yep, I do all
work.
that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have a guy that we hired at the beginning of the year. He's our parts guy. And then there's another gentleman that works for us. He's been with us. Good golly. I can't even tell you. Him and David went to high school together.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And when David moved down here, he told him, hey, come drive my motor home while I'm doing this NASCAR deal. And, if it doesn't work out, we'll figure something else out. And so he's been down here as long as David has. And he's very trustworthy, you
got to have that.
Yes, absolutely.
Got to have that.
So we're very lucky that we have him, and he's the type that if I call him at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, I need you to do this, he's going to do it. But
that's great.
We're just going to keep it small at this point. It's just the 4 of us. And
what do you guys like to do for fun?
Oh, Lordy, be at a racetrack.
Outside of racing.
Well, you obviously don't know my husband enough.
No, I've never seen you on a sunny island drinking a fruity drink. I can tell you that.
We took our honeymoon a year late because of racing, and we were just talking about it 2 days ago. He's like, we need to go on vacation. I'm like, yes, we do. And he's like, well, I think maybe about August. I'm like, good golly, like summer's over then. And his weekend of an off weekend of not doing anything is still being at a racetrack. Yeah. He loves racing that much. He's ate up with it. I do love racing, probably not to the extent that he does. I do like white sands and blue waters and pool boys that bring drinks nonstop.
Does David still, obviously, I don't know the answer to this question, does he still aspire to race?
Absolutely.
And still working on that?
Yeah.
And if an opportunity came up, he would be
blessed. Absolutely.
all over that.
We talk about it on a regular basis. I would love to close that door.
Yeah.
NASCAR has been good to us. for the last, good Lordy, has he been it for 13
Yeah.
years now, 14 years, something crazy like that. But the world has changed a lot, and he's not ready to hang that helmet up yet. And I can understand that and respect it. But at the same time, I'm like, look, we need to close that chapter of our life.
It's always somewhat of a distraction, I guess.
Yes,
you know,
yes, absolutely.
Because you can't fully focus on one path.
Yes. And he's like, well, I'm not ready to close that door. And if somebody calls me, and that was the thing, you know, before the season started, he had 3 or 4 phone calls, and he told them all no. And it's a tough subject for us because I can respect him in the fact that he's tired of not being competitive.
Yeah.
He is very competitive. He got to where he is today because of his driving ability alone.
Right.
And I feel like in the 5 years that I've known him as a driver, I really feel like he's gotten the short end of the stick.
Absolutely.
Some people, even NASCAR fans, will come back and be like, oh, well, he was at Penske. And what a lot of people don't understand as race fans is they don't understand that it's just more than the driver.
Yeah.
At that point, I know him and his crew chief didn't really see eye to eye. And sometimes people will sabotage you just to make you look bad. And at the end of the day, if the car's not running well, it's the driver's fault. Forget about the 52 other guys that have anything to do with it. It's the driver's fault. And after they put Keselowski in the car, a few months later, the crew chief was fired. And then all of a sudden, Brad was doing miraculously. And so I think we just got the short end of the stick. I think my husband's extremely talented. His driving ability continues to blow me away just in the sheer fact that we've won as many races as we have on dirt, being that he never touched the dirt. If you're a heck of a dirt
racer, you can about do anything.
That's what they say, but you know, it's the world's changed a lot in the sport of NASCAR, and unfortunately, it's no longer about how talented you are. It's what you can bring to the table and what you can offer a race team. And neither of us came from money. His family didn't either, so. It was a struggle, and, you know, when the whole Bush deal with both the brothers and people were getting shuffled everywhere, there were a few phone calls made, but it still wasn't his ideal situation. And so I think that chapter is going to close itself on its own because I don't think the ideal situation is going to ever come.
Right.
I'm not saying that he won't ever do it again, but it's got to be on his terms, not somebody else's terms.
Yeah.
And I respect him for that.
Well, that's a good revelation to come to, you know? I mean,
tough.
really.
Because,
really.
I mean, when you aspire as a kid like he did, I mean, my lordy, he's been at the racetrack since he was a kid just like I have. And, you know, it's tough when it's your life and it's what you love, and to sit there and watch everybody else do it and to know that you could have been as successful as others and you just didn't have the right opportunity. But at the same time, he's very thankful to get to where he has because there's only 43 guys week in and week out, you know? And I tell him that, and I'm like, look, I understand that running 30th isn't what you want to do, but my golly, you're one of the top 43 drivers in the world right now.
There's 43 spots, and somebody's got to finish in every one of them.
Exactly, yeah. So that's been a hard transition. Yeah. He's not ready to close that door. He's still looking for that phone call
right
situation. To be,
I can totally appreciate and respect and understand that. It's a hard thing, right? I mean, once a racer, always a racer. I don't know that it ever leaves your body. But if this chassis business and that road can manifest itself for you guys, and you can reap reward from that, maybe, you know, that'll slowly.
That's what I tell him. I'm like, you know, if we're going to do this, like, we need to put all our eggs in one basket, and we need to run with it.
Yeah.
And the wave's been crazy big right out of the gate, and we're going to ride it for right now, and hopefully it doesn't crash anytime soon. And if it does, we'll figure something else out, and it'll be in racing, I'm sure, because we don't know anything else. And Lordy, I mean, we're not above flipping burgers at McDonald's, but, you know, if it's got something to do with racing, he wants to be involved with it. And when you can't teach somebody passion.
No.
That's what I tell somebody more than anything, and I've had several conversations with people, and they're like, well, we're looking for a driver who's not mediocre. And unfortunately, I think from here on out, that's all you're going to get, because a lot of these guys haven't worked on their own stuff, and they don't have the passion that the old school racers do, and you can't teach passion. You either have it or you don't.
I talk about just people in our office and employees and hiring people. It's like you need to have a willingness to learn and a positive attitude.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that willingness to learn is that passion. You know, you've got to be in there, want to do it, strive to do it, and want to be the best at it. And we can teach you anything.
As long as you're willing to learn it.
We can teach you all about it.
And I can teach you twice if I have to, as long as you're still, you know, your
positive
focus is
and
there.
You're ready
Absolutely.
take it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I've enjoyed the conversation and getting to know a little bit more of the details. I hope the listeners have too, and I certainly appreciate you joining me today. All right, it's time now for our tip of the week, brought to you by Wella Professionals. This tip is a big one for moms and daughters out there, and I brought in a special guest today. We're going to talk about how to prevent frustrating tangles in your daughter's hair, and my 9-year-old daughter, Kennedy, is here. How are you today, Kennedy?
Horrible.
You're horrible?
I hate brushing hair.
Okay, so you're not horrible, but you have a horrible experience getting the tangles out of your hair, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I do believe that I have used some Wella product on your hair for this. Remember?
You have?
Yep. Remember, it was a couple weeks ago, and I brought out some stuff, and you were like, Mom, where'd you get that?
Can I tell one thing?
Yep. Tell a little story about getting the tangles out of your hair.
Every morning, we have a little bottle of stuff that we use for my hair. And every single morning, somebody brushes my hair. And it always ends up somebody pulls my hair, and then it yanks it, and then I get really mad.
Yep. So you're the perfect person to use this tip out.
Definitely.
Each and every day. All right. It all starts with evening care. So you've got to start this process in the evening. You need a quality brush. The salon professionals recommend a boar bristle paddle brush. Remove all the tangles with the brush, then apply a pea-sized drop of Wella oil from the mid-shaft to the ends of the hair to add moisture. In the morning, try not to get the hair partially wet while brushing. This causes a lot of tangles as it mixes with dry hair. As you begin to brush again, start from the ends and work your way up to the mid-length. That's the thing Kennedy likes, is for me to start with the ends.
Yep.
Using Wella Professionals Elements Leave-In Conditioning Spray will also help seal the hair, maintain moisture, and help detangle the hair. And no matter what type of hair your daughter or anyone in your family has, fine, normal, coarse, or curly, Wella Professionals hair products has you covered. You can purchase Wella at any of the 782 Ulta stores nationwide and purchase online at Ulta.com. To see more of their new Elements line, visit Wella.com and click under the products section. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Fastlane Family, and we will see you again right here next week. Fastlane Family has been brought to you by Wella Professional Hair Care, multi-sensorial hair care products that you will see, touch, and sense the difference from your very first wash. Hair care needs from fine to normal to color to coarse, Wella's got you covered. Wella Professional Hair Care products are available at over 780 Ulta stores nationwide. Visit Ulta.com to find the store nearest you.
Thanks for listening to Dirty Mo Radio.